This video tutorial will cover a workflow which adds or re-adds root motion to an FBX which has been exported from iClone. Unfortunately, while claiming to be compatible with Unreal Engine 4, which needs a root bone which has root motion if needed, iClone does not actually export that root motion at the moment. There's a feedback tracker forum in the description below. Please feel free to have a look in that, and if you can, give it a vote. So the workflow starts with just a simple animation which was recorded, in this case with a perception neuron. You can see he does move from the spot. It's not a complete animation, this is just raw motion capture data, and is by no means perfect. So I've cropped it to roughly the end of the animation here, 930, something like that. And then if I go to File, Export, Export FBX, I'm using the Unreal, implying compatibility, tool preset, and then I'm selecting 30 frames per second for no particular reason. The range is 1 to 925 because I do want to include an animation in the export. And I delete unused morphs and hidden mesh. It's kind of personal preference. I find it stops bleed through of clothing layers in Unreal. Perhaps you handle that better than I do, I don't know. So I've actually exported this already. It's called No Root, and you'll see what I mean. So if I go to Blender, start a new file. If I go to Blender, import FBX, you need to have the FBX importer enabled. Navigate to that folder. I can select the no root and import it. And I'll show you what I mean by there being no root motion. If you look at the armature, I just like to delete all of the meshes because we're not actually interested in the character at the moment. If you look at the armature, there is a root bone, and in general it all fits with the Unreal Engine default mannequin skeleton. It's got a few additional things, CC standing for character creator, which is great because they're only adding to the skeleton, so they are compatible. But then if we look at the animation, this is the root, it doesn't move. It should be under the hips the entire time, which is concerning. And yeah, let's look at how to fix that. So if I find out how many frames there are, 463. 463. That's me just trimming it to fit the entire range. Makes things a little easier. So there's lots and lots of tutorials out there which use Maya or Blender to inspect the graph editor, copy the X and Y location keys of the hips or pelvis and add them to the root bone, which is essentially what this is going to do. I find when you do that in Blender, not Maya, it can be troublesome. It works for Mixamo rigs, but it doesn't seem to work for these ones. But I'm by no means an expert in Blender, so I'm probably doing something wrong. But this is my method, so I select the pelvis and then I navigate to the bone, menu, properties in edit mode, and I just click this little cross. You can also press Alt-P to do that, and now I've separated the two. Next I'm going to go to pose mode and then add a constraint, but not this kind of constraint, a bone constraint. And in particular it will be a copy location, because as I said, that's what we'd like to do. Armature, and then the pelvis. Not that one, this one. If you're doing this for a Mixamo, it may be called something different. In principle it's the same, and then I untick Z, so you can see the difference. It goes from the up top, or up middle, to along, well, never moving along the Z axis at all, which is great. And now if I move through this, it's root motion, right? Great. Except for the pelvis is not parented to the root. So we need to go to Pose, Animation, Bake Action, which will take away the constraint, clear the constraint, and bake keyframes using visual keying for the root bone. Unfortunately, if you take this, then it deletes all the keyframes for the rest of the armature, so you actually have to do it for all of it. I'm sure I didn't used to do this, but since making this tutorial, that seems to have changed. Please let me know if you know a workaround. I press OK, and we've got not too many frames, it's not too detailed. This should only take 10 seconds or so. But with a longer animation, it's a bit longer, which is frustrating. And now the keyframes are baked, there's no constraint anymore, and we've got what we wanted. So going back to edit mode, I now need to reparent the pelvis, shift-clicking root to the root bone. So I press, I think, Control P, yep, and then keep offset, otherwise it will snap up to it. And we can see, yeah, you've got a little line, just what we wanted, except for, you may have figured out, we've now got 2 times X and Y translations for the pelvis, so it looks like this, and it's moving twice as far as we wanted, and it all looks not quite right. So going back to the first frame, although I don't think you need to do that, I'm going to select the pelvis and add a bone constraint, copying the location of the armature, and this time it's the root, so it's copying a copy. Seems silly, but it does work. Unticking Z again, otherwise the hips will be at the floor. Then staying in pose mode, I'm going to do the animation baking again for everything, and it should take about 10 seconds again. Just a second. There we are. So now if I press play, it does everything just about right. And this will now work if you export it as an FBX to Unreal. You'll get what you want. There's one final thing though, which is if you press N, you can bring up the transform menu. You'll notice that selecting the root, it's not actually at the origin at the start, and sometimes that can be quite a large deviation, which is more of a problem, but really, and as per the Unreal documentation on root motion animations, they should really be at the origin. So better safe than sorry. I'm going to extrude, pressing T to get rid of that, give yourself a bit more space, the graph editor. So if I just scroll out and I hold Control and middle mouse button, I can reshape this as desired. I'm currently viewing everything, of which there's not much, because there are no rotation or scale changes in keyframed. Not interested in Z because that's fine. I'm interested in X. If this is deselected, you can press B to bring up the selection tool. And now if you press G, you can see in the just about the bottom left it says dx0, dy0. So that's change in X, change in Y. We would like the change in Y to match the change in the X location required, which in this case will be minus 1.67598. So if I press Tab once, it's not immediately clear, just press it once and nothing will change visually, but something has. And then type minus 1.67598, and watch for rounding errors, 8, and then I think that, is that going to be a 27 or a 027? Let's go with 27, and then press enter, and we're at 0. The next thing to do is view the Y, not the X, and do the same thing. So press G, Tab, and then not negative this time, it is plus 0.3111, and then I think that would be a 0, 4, 3. Enter. It says -0, but you know, I think that'll be okay. And that's done now. So I can just drag that over there. Go File. Oh, just in case. File, Export, FBX. Go to my little demo, and well, I've already got it there. And then just export that. And let's have a see if that's worked. Just a project already made. Here it is. Nice and small file. I'm going to match it to an existing iClone skeleton, and I think that's fine. No idea what it means. Oddly, it imports 3 animations, I find, 2 of which are just the original animation from iClone with no root correction at all. If anyone knows why, please let me know, but I find the middle one works. And look, you've got root motion. That's what this red line is implying. Just eyeballing it, it does look correct, which is good. It works with a better avatar, I think. There's no bleed through on the shirt because I deleted the hidden layers. Just generally all good. Now this is I think a quicker method than manually copying everything at the keyframes. Please use and abuse it. Thank you very much.